Welcome to my third episode of Conversations with Kibby. In this one, I hit up an OG, a founding father of the philosophy of you can't make this stuff up. By the way, thank you all for jumping in both feet with me and joining me on this little journey. I'm having a blast and I hope you're enjoying it too. Hope this finds you fat and happy. Love y'all. Welcome back, everybody. Today, I've got a treat for you. A very good friend of mine from back in the Southern Indiana area. He was one of the original teachers that I sat around a table with at lunchtime, and we originally came up with this idea, but it was in book form called You Can't Make This Stuff Up. And without any further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. John Wells. Wellzy, thanks for joining us today.
It's good to see you again. Man, all those days you were like in the room next to me. How many days did we just stand out there just shaking our head going, nope. Where did this come from?
I'll jump straight in. Do you remember we caught the kid that was selling sips of water out of his locker right behind us?
Oh.
So you know the premise. This is a format for teachers to air some stuff that hopefully all of the rest of our colleagues will enjoy and be able to smile at. So give me something that you'll never forget about teaching.
Well, I have to go back to your original guest, AK. You were telling the story about your deaf student. So I was teaching just outside of East St. Louis, and I had this deaf girl in class. And so my first day, the interpreter comes in. She's like, hey, whatever you say, I'm going to interpret. And whatever she says, I'm going to tell you, right? I'm like, okay, cool, And she was talking about how she was the center of attention because kids are always like looking at her like, what is she saying? What is she saying, right? Well, as we're talking, she was telling the story when she was interpreting for that girl in a health class as a freshman. You know where this is going, right? And so, the beginning of health class is fine, and then they get into the sexuality part, and she's signing all these things for like sex and penis and vagina and whatever, and she's a lot of those signs are mimics, right? And all the kids in the class are looking over at her. And so then, and the teacher was like this young teacher, fresh, like, I'm just going to educate the world. I'm going to be like honest and real, right? And so the kids figured it out really quick. Like, wait a minute. One kid raised his hand and asked this teacher something about masturbation. And everybody turns to the interpreter, who starts to sign. And they keep asking this teacher questions, and the teacher keeps answering it and not knowing what's going on. And the interpreter's over here mimicking and signing. Yeah, kids figured this out really quick.
I remember at one point we had a kid when we were teaching together that got introduced to me as having a unique habit of wearing a coat even in the summertime. Do you remember this kid?
I remember this kid.
I was like, to each their own. Who am I to judge? If you want to wear a coat, wear a coat. And then it got deeper when they said, if he takes his jacket off, start paying attention because he likes to have his own special time in class. And I'm like, right there in class, that's what the jacket is for. So is it a whack-it jacket?
Oh, gosh.
When I say you can't make this stuff up, man, I'm not lying.
I got to tell the story. And you remember the older gentleman that we worked with that...
Let's call him Fred.
Fred. Okay, let's call him Fred. So, and to set this story up, for those people that, know me, they know that I don't mind having an adult beverage or 10, right? Right. So anyway, so I get to set that part up. And Fred came to us. What was he, like 70 when he first came to us?
Oh, at least. Yeah.
And he had spent his whole life in corporate America and high-end business and whatever. And so he just really came to us from that corporate mindset, right? I just didn't understand, kids a lot of times. So anyway, it was my birthday, and we shared a classroom for a block or two. And so he comes in one day. He says, "Happy birthday, John. Happy birthday, John. I brought you a present." And I said, "Oh, thanks, Fred. I appreciate that, you know." Between first block and second block, he comes back. "Hey, did you get that present? You get my present?" And I said, "Oh, man, I've been so busy, Fred. I just haven't been able to yet." He goes, "Well, it's in your refrigerator." And I'm like, "What did you bring me that's in my refrigerator?" You know, I had a little dorm fridge back then. And he goes, "Well, I brought you some of that beer that you like, that place in Chicago." And I'm like, "What?"
To school.
To school.
In your classroom.
In my classroom. Of all the people with no plausible deniability, he brings me a 6-pack of beer. I'm like, "Oh, Fred, what the heck?"
Now, if you don't happen to be in education, please understand that we're in dire need of good substitute teachers. Okay, please donate your time.
Yes.
You don't get paid much, but you would help us out a lot. However, with that said, Fred used to substitute before he became a long-term teacher, and
Yes.
this whole disconnect with kids also happens with technology. Unfortunately for Fred, they put his office computer next to mine, and he used to annoy the ever living crap out of me. So in order to get back at him in a safe way, I used to jump into the settings on his computer, and I'd take his mouse and click his left one for his right one and his right one for his left one. And I'd adjust the settings where if you roll up one click, it would go up a page. I think I remember you saying you jumped in and switched or mirrored his screen or something like that.
Screen around. Speaking of Fred and subbing, during plan period, he decided he was just going to stay in the room, right? And so after the plan period and, you know, it was time for his next class, the kids show up. Well, the door's locked. And one of the kids looking in, he's knocking at the door, and they see Fred, and he's sitting at the desk. You know, it's kind of just slumped over. And they're like, "Oh, my God." And, of course, by this time, he's got to be, 80-something, right?
So it is plausible he might be dead.
But they call downstairs, and they're like, "We need a custodian. We need somebody to unlock this room. We don't know what's going on, but he's not responding." And so somebody shows up, and he looks in. He bangs on the door. He goes, "Oh, my God." So he unlocks the door, grabs him, and slides him to the ground, thinking he's going to do CPR on him. And by this time, you know, we got an ambulance coming, we got a fire truck coming, we got a squad coming. We can hear the sirens because we're not that far from the firehouse. And our custodian has him on the ground, is getting ready to start CPR. And that's when Fred wakes up. He's like, "Huh? What's going on?" And he was just asleep. He was just asleep.
At this school where we taught together, I saw some of the weirdest stuff. From our room, we oversaw the parking lot, the main parking lot. From that point, I saw a gentleman, I will refer to him as a gentleman, with a shotgun headed towards the main door. So we have a bomb scare. We're all out there, and the head of the security committee called 7 teachers together and brought us over and said, "Okay, we're going to go in and sweep the building. Be looking for any suspicious bags." It's a school building. There are literally backpacks laying everywhere. You want me to go sweep the school for a suspicious looking bag?
Right. And by the way, let's not forget, it is so unsafe that every kid and every other adult is outside, but you're going back in.
Send me back in. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. I got another story. Communication is key, right? Like you're constantly talking to parents. So I had this phone call one day. So I go to the next room and I take the phone call, and it is this mother eating my soul. I mean, she is up one side of me, down the other. She's like, "How come you haven't called me? How come you haven't communicated with me? How come you aren't answering my emails? Little Johnny is failing, and I want to know what we can do." And I remember calling her, but, you know, didn't have a voicemail or anything. And I'm like, "Ma'am, I don't have any emails from you." You know, so I really quickly log into a computer. You remember our principal at the time, you know, and the infamous "see me" notes. And I knew what was coming, right? I was like, I do not want one of those. So I'm in like prevent defense now, right? I'm like, okay, let's talk about where Johnny's at. Let's figure this out. So I got her calmed down, and I'm like, ma'am, I'm sorry. Phone isn't the best way to contact you. No, email me. It's okay. Well, I don't have any emails from you. So I tell you what, let's do. Why don't you give me your email? I'll send you an email right while we're still on the phone. And then you can reply back to me. Now that way our two systems trust each other, right? Right. She goes, okay, great. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I said, tell me what your email is. And I'm going to butcher it a little bit, obviously, because we don't want everybody emailing her. Sexy, hot, biatch, 69 for life. And we get right about the end of, and she's spelling all this out. And I go, yeah, I know what's happening.
It is safe to say that I have been in principals' offices way more as a teacher than I ever was as a student. I have received several of those, especially when I was at the school where we taught together. I received several of those. One in particular caught me off guard. I show up for school. There it is. See me. I'm like, oh no, what did I do?
And that's all it said. See me.
Yeah. No background, no setup, no nothing. I walk into the principal's office and there's already a mother and a daughter sitting in there waiting for me. I'm like, this cannot be good. So to give you a little background information, now that I know what I know, the class before, I was teaching Shakespeare to sophomores, and we were doing what is called a double entry diary. I know that you know what that means. For those of you that either aren't ELA teachers or aren't teachers, a double entry diary is when you are trying to activate the reader's brain by having them interact with the text. So you have a piece of paper and you have a line down the middle and there's two sides of it, right? On the left-hand side, you're supposed to write when your brain activates, what were the actual words that you read? And then on the right-hand side, you're supposed to give me some sort of indication about that reminds me of someplace, or I've been there before, I've heard that, I don't know what that word means, what are you talking about, I'm lost, that type. We're in class and I was demonstrating this and I told a kid, like, write down, I'm not sure what that word means, or I don't know what that means. Then I have another kid say, well, do I have to write that whole thing out or can I write a question mark? And I'm like, I'll know what you mean if you write a question mark. Okay. So you've always got that one kid in class, right? The one kid puts that little twinkle in his eye and raises his hand. I'm like, what's up? He said, what if I wrote WTF? And I'm like, well, technically, I think I would know what you're trying to communicate. I would not suggest that as something that you would do for a class. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. That was the only thing that was said. We go on with class, no problem, right? Fast forward to the next morning when I walk into mom, who is steaming hot. The principal says, this mother is concerned because of your lesson yesterday and what you taught her daughter. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? She said, as she was looking at her homework from last night, that you encouraged her to write WTF on her double entry diary. And I was like, okay, I understand. This is what I actually said in class. I thought it was going to, very easy explanation. We're going to blow it over, right?
Right.
No. Principal says, well, what does WTF mean, Mr. Kibler? And I said, it can mean a number of different things, but it basically means what the F-bomb. She said, what's an F-bomb? Now, remember, we're trying to avoid this word. The whole reason why mom is mad is because this word is involved, okay? So over the course of the conversation to explain what WTF means, we said it 7 times. 7 times, okay? We're trying to avoid saying the word. That the word is what we're trying to avoid 7 times. Also, this administrator writes down word for word during these meetings so that she can put this in your teacher file. So there wasn't a file in my teacher record that had the F word in it 7 times in order to avoid saying the F word. Oh, by the way, how ironic was it that the young lady in question, who mom is so protective of, at the time was wearing a Hooters t-shirt?
Yes. Yeah. You can't make this up, can you?
Hypocrisy at its finest.
Speaking of, using the F word, like I was writing a referral for a kid one time, and I put, said F this and said F you and said whatever, and I write it all out and I email it off. And our dean of students goes, well, can you be a little bit more descriptive? And I go, like, what did I miss? Like, do you want like me to like draw caricatures of, how this looked or something? He goes, well, what does the F word mean? And I go, you want me to write this out? He goes, yeah, just write everything out specifically. And I'm like, in my school email, like the one that is automatically monitored from downtown, you want me to type, the kid said you, and this, you want me to type all that? Okay.
They had a system set up where if keywords showed up, it flagged it, and they all had to go review it, right?
Yes. And our system, and I think a lot of schools have a very similar system. They all have, like their cell phones, they all get an alert when, and again, we're a big district, right? Like, we're a pretty big district. And if a kid on their school device searches for anything, particular keywords, right? And phrases and ideas, and on their school device, even at home, they get an alert. And they talk about how weekend mornings are pretty rough. Early in the morning, they start getting,
ding, 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 ding. Dude, it has been absolutely fantastic catching up with you. We're going to have to do this some more because I know just between the two of us, we have more stories from not only that particular location, but in other areas that we popped into.
We have stories.
There will be second and third installments of the Wellzy and Kibby show for sure.
I look forward to that. Thank you so much. It was great being on here with you and seeing you again.
Have a good one, brother.
Thanks, man. Take care.